My mom tried pressuring me to marry my cousin so she could get a green card. When I refused, she spent. Can you imagine your own mother looking you in the eye and telling you, not asking but telling you, that you're flying across the world to marry your cousin for a green card? And when you refuse, she unleashes years of pure hell on you, systematically trying to dismantle your life, until one day, everything she did came crashing down on her. Yeah, that was my reality. My family is Dominican and I, Mateo, am 23. Growing up, Spanish was my first language, and loyalty to family wasn't just a suggestion. It was the ironclad rule. My mom, Yolanda, cloaked every demand, every scheme, every meltdown in the flag of family duty and sacrifice. When you hear that your whole life, you don't question it. You just carry it. I was 19 when she dropped the bombshell. She sat me down at the kitchen table and informed me I was flying to the Dominican Republic that summer to marry my third cousin. Not would you like to, but you are. My cousin was a decent person. She'd grown up rough back home, and honestly, my mom showed her more attention than she ever showed me. My cousin wanted to come to the States for nursing school. I never had an issue with her. The problem was the plan. Fly down, legally marry her, bring her back on a spousal visa, stay married for a year, then divorce. My mom would pocket some money, and I'd be on the hook for immigration fraud. She'd brought this up a couple of years earlier, and I just figured it was classic Dominican mom dramatics. Wild stuff you let float past you. But that afternoon, she pulled out her phone, scrolled to her email, and turned the screen toward me. 2 flight confirmations. Round trip. Departing July. My name was already on one of them. I just stared, speechless. She was already talking about how long we'd need to stay, what paperwork we'd need, how my cousin was getting her documents together. Like we were planning a family vacation, not a federal crime. You're serious right now? I finally managed. She didn't even blink. The flights are booked. We leave in July. I'm not marrying my cousin. She's your third cousin, Mateo. Stop being dramatic. I tried to reason with her. I had a girlfriend. We'd been together for a while. My mom looked at me like I'd just told her I had a pet rock. I don't care about your girlfriend. I don't care about your personal life. Her exact words. I pushed back, telling her I wasn't comfortable, that it was illegal. Each time I said no, her voice got louder. The conversation spiraled from a discussion to a shouting match in minutes. When I flat out refused, she shot up so fast her chair slammed against the wall. If you are not willing to help this family, then find somewhere else to live. I was 19. My part-time job barely covered my phone bill. No savings, no backup plan, no car. The threat of getting kicked out wasn't abstract. It was survival-level real. I knew exactly what happened to young people on the streets in my neighborhood. That night, I sat in my room, numb, trying to process. My girlfriend was supportive, saying we'd figure it out. But I could tell she didn't fully grasp the weight of it. She came from a normal household where disagreements ended in silence, not eviction threats. The yelling wasn't the worst part, though. It was the next morning. She was completely normal. Humming, making breakfast, asking if I wanted eggs, even laughing at something on her phone and showing it to me like we were buddies. Like the kitchen table ultimatum never happened. I didn't sleep much that week, counting down to July, desperately trying to figure out an escape. My mom started mentioning the trip casually to relatives, framing it as a fun family visit. No one questioned it. No one asked me how I felt. Whatever she said was the official version of reality. If she said I was excited to help my cousin, then that was the truth. My actual feelings were just background noise. She also started being extra nice, making my favorite food, asking about my classes, laughing at my jokes. I knew what it meant. She decided the plan was happening, and she was preloading goodwill so that when she cashed in, I'd feel obligated. I wasn't her son. I was her tool. And if I didn't figure out how to get out of this on my own terms, she was going to use me until there was nothing left. This was spring 2020. The first thing she did after that kitchen table blow-up was ask where my passport was. I told her it was expired. Technically true, it was close, and I had zero intention of renewing it. She said she'd handle it herself. Just needed me to hand over the passport and my birth certificate. She wasn't asking for documents. She was collecting leverage. I told her I'd look for them. Then I did absolutely nothing. Over the next few weeks, she kept bringing up the trip to relatives on the phone, always within earshot. He's looking forward to seeing the family. He's happy to help his cousin. She was building a narrative where I'd already agreed, so when I tried to back out, I'd be the difficult one. That's when my boy Nikolai stepped in. Russian family, grew up a few blocks from me, built like a refrigerator. I told him everything. He stared at me for 10 seconds, then, with his thick accent, said, "Bro, you know she's going to take some documents and you're stuck, right?" "I know." "So, where's it still in her closet?" He had a way of asking questions that made you feel stupid and grateful at the same time. He was right. I'd been too deep in survival mode to think straight. So, we came up with Operation Backpack. Stupid name, solid plan. I waited for my mom to leave for work, then went straight to her bedroom closet. Top shelf, behind a shoebox, my passport, birth certificate, and social security card, neatly tucked in a manila folder with my name on it in her handwriting, separated from the rest of the family's paperwork. She had mine set aside like supplies she was getting ready to use. I took photos, moved the originals into my backpack, secured them in a cheap fireproof pouch, and kept that bag on me or at Nikolai's at all times. I opened a new bank account at a different bank. The old one still had her name attached from when I was a minor. Started moving money over in small amounts. Moved clothes and essentials out in waves, a hoodie here, shoes in a bag there. Kept my phone locked. Cleared my search history every night. I kept my head down. Didn't argue. Didn't bring up the trip. Didn't give her anything to react to. Gray rock before I even knew the term existed. About 3 weeks in, she walked into my room without knocking and started going through my dresser. Opened every drawer, moved things around. Looked under a stack of jeans. When she didn't find what she was looking for, she stopped. Stood there with her back to me for a few seconds, perfectly still. Then she turned around. Not angry. Worse. Patient. "Where's your folder?" "What folder?" "The one that was in my closet." "I don't know what you're talking about." She barely smiled, then walked out without closing the door. Over the next few days, she started these little tests. Asking me to hand her my ID. Asking me to log into the old bank account. Each time, I had a deflection ready. Each time, she watched my face a little too carefully. Then she tried a different angle. Called my aunt and uncle and told them I was being disrespectful, refusing to help family, turning my back on my cousin who had nothing. She painted me as the selfish American kid who forgot where he came from. A few relatives called to lecture me about gratitude. I let them talk, said I understood, never corrected the story. Then came the ambush. My mom invited me to Sunday dinner at my aunt's place. Said it was just family, nothing serious. When I walked in, the living room was full. My aunt, my uncle, 2 older cousins, and my mom sitting in the middle looking concerned. My uncle started it. Said the family was worried that I was being selfish, that it wasn't how I was raised. My aunt said my cousin in the DR was counting on me. One of my older cousins told me to stop thinking about myself for once. The whole time, my mom just sat there quiet, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. She'd coached every single one of them. She didn't even need to speak. Just let the room do her work. I looked at all of them and realized nobody knew what they were actually asking me to do. She'd framed it so carefully that they thought I was just being difficult. I said I understood their concerns and left. Didn't argue, didn't explain. Because in that family, the truth coming from me would lose to a tear coming from her. Every time. Nikolai was waiting in his car outside. He took one look at my face. Ambush. Full production. He just said DV and drove. Meanwhile, she found another option. Some friend of a friend here in the States willing to do a paper marriage for money. That fell through, too. I used that window to finish moving the last of my important stuff to Nikolai's. By the time her attention swung back to me, I was lighter than she realized. But I could feel it building. She was regrouping. And when my mom regroups, the next move is always worse. Actually, a quick side thing I forgot to mention. During all this, I was still going to classes and working part-time at a little shipping store near the house. My manager was this older Haitian dude named Jean-Pierre, who played the same 3 Bob Marley songs on repeat every single shift. Had nothing to do with anything, but I think about that store sometimes. It was the one normal part of my week. Anyway, a few weeks before the July travel date, she made her last real push. Told me she'd made an appointment at the post office for my passport renewal. Saturday morning, 10 a.m. I told her I'd be there. Saturday morning, I went to Nikolai's house instead. When she called at 10:15, I told her I got called into work. She was quiet for a long time. I could hear the post office lobby behind her. "We can reschedule," she said, her voice tight. "Yeah, sure." But I'd already checked the renewal timeline online. Even if she got me to submit that day, processing would take 6 to 8 weeks minimum. July was less than 4 weeks out. The math didn't work. The window had closed, and she didn't even realize it. When July came and went without a flight, she didn't say a word. The pandemic was making travel complicated, which gave her a face-saving excuse. But I knew the real reason. I'd run out the clock without ever saying no to her face again. The summer I turned 21, everything came apart. The marriage scheme was dead. The pandemic killed the travel. The backup person ghosted. My cousin was still in the doctor. My mom never said the plan was over. She just went silent about it, which, with her, was more dangerous than yelling. The girlfriend I had back when this whole thing started? She didn't survive the fallout. She stuck around through the passport games and the ambush, but the constant stress wore us down. We weren't fighting about each other. We were fighting about everything around us. She eventually told me she cared about me, but couldn't keep living in crisis mode. I didn't blame her. Honestly, I was in no shape to be somebody's boyfriend at that point. What actually set things off with my mom was money. I'd started working more hours and was pulling in decent checks for the first time. My mom noticed immediately. She started expecting me to hand over a chunk of every paycheck. Not rent, not a bill split, just money. She framed it as helping with the household, but the math never added up. She wanted roughly half of what I made, and when I asked what it was going towards, she'd either dodge or go straight to guilt. I started pushing back. Small boundary lines. Giving her less than she asked for, saying I had bills, delaying by a day or two. Every time I pushed back, she got quieter, which was worse. That's when she started pulling threads. First, she forgot to pay the phone bill for the family plan my line was on. My phone got cut off for 3 days, right when I was trying to pick up extra shifts. When I confronted her, she said it was an accident. She'd been busy. It slipped her mind. Then she told me she needed my car key back. The spare to the car I'd been using, which was technically in her name. Said she needed it for the mechanic. Never gave it back. Each move was small enough to deny and big enough to remind me who was still holding the strings. But I had my documents. I had my separate bank account. And she didn't know about either one. So when she reached for control, she was grabbing at things that didn't matter as much as she thought they did. Operation Backpack was the only reason those moves stung instead of crippled. One night in August, she told me to send her $300 by the morning. I told her I'd already covered my share for the month. She tilted her head like I'd said something amusing. "I'm not asking about your share. I'm telling you what I need. I don't have it." She stared at me for a long time and then said something I'll never forget. "You think you're grown? Then go be grown somewhere else." I didn't respond. Walked to my room and started mentally running through what I still had in the apartment that I couldn't afford to lose. Most of the important stuff was already out. I set my alarm for 5 a.m., planning to pack quietly before she woke up. Didn't get the chance. By the next afternoon, my stuff was in trash bags on the front porch. 3 black hefty bags lined up in a neat row. My winter coat was sticking out of one of them. I could see it from the sidewalk.
She was all calm about it.
The demand for money was the test, and my refusal was the permission slip she needed. When relatives asked, it'd be, he refused to contribute, not I kicked my son out because he stopped being a cash machine. I'm going to be honest here. I wasn't prepared. Operation Backpack had given me my documents and a little cash in a separate account, but I didn't have first and last for an apartment. Didn't have a car. Having my documents meant I could move forward. It didn't mean I had anywhere to go. Nikolai came through. Showed up in his beat-up sedan 20 minutes after I called, helped me load the trash bags into the trunk without saying a word, and took me back to his family's place. His parents let me crash in their basement without asking a lot of questions. His mom put a plate of food in front of me before I even sat down. His dad looked at me once, nodded, and went back to watching the news. That was it. No interrogation, no pity face. Russian hospitality. You're here, you eat, you sleep. We figured out tomorrow. I slept on a pull-out couch in their basement for about 3 weeks, working every shift I could grab, eating cheap, trying to figure out my next move. My mom called me twice during those 3 weeks. The first time she sounded warm, almost cheerful. When are you coming home, Mateo? I made rice. Like she hadn't. Bagged up my life and left it on the porch for the neighbors to see. I told her I was figuring things out and hung up. The second time, she sent a long text about how I was breaking the family apart and how my little sister, Na, was crying every night because I was gone. That one hurt. Na was young and had nothing to do with any of this. But I knew my mom was using her as a weapon, and giving in would just reset the cycle. I found a room in a shared house through a guy Nikolai knew. The walls were thin enough to hear my roommate's alarm every morning at 6. I moved in with 2 trash bags of clothes, a phone charger, my documents, and about $400. Bought a mattress off a marketplace app for $40. Some guy delivered it in a pickup and helped me haul it up to the second floor. First night there, I sat on that mattress, back against the wall, and just breathed. Nobody was going to barge in and demand money. Nobody was going to guilt me over a cousin I barely knew. Nobody was going through my dresser, looking for leverage.
Peace.
Nikolai came by the next day with a bag of groceries his mom had packed. Rice, canned stuff, some bread, a couple of those frozen meal things. He didn't make a whole thing of it. Just put the bag on the counter, said, "Eat. You look skinny," and started talking about something completely unrelated. That was Nikolai. But I knew my mom wasn't done. Getting kicked out was just the visible part. The real damage was going to be the stuff I couldn't see coming. She still had access to parts of my life I hadn't thought to lock down. And she was the type of person who, when she lost control of you physically, would find other ways to control you. That fall, about 2 months after I moved into the shared house, I got pulled over on the way home from a late shift. It was around 11 at night. Empty road, no traffic, just me and my headlights. I saw the red and blue in my mirror before I even heard anything. My hands got tight on the wheel right away. I'd bought a used car a few weeks earlier with what was left of my savings, and it was not exactly in showroom condition. The kind of car where you hold your breath every time you pass a cop. The officer ran my plates and came back to my window with a look that told me something was wrong before he even opened his mouth. "Are you aware your registration is suspended?" "Suspended?"
No, sir.
"I just bought the car a few weeks ago." He explained that a late fee turned into a penalty. The penalty turned into a DMV flag. And the flag turned into a suspended registration. Some unpaid toll citation I'd never responded to. I was now driving a car that legally shouldn't have been on the road. I'd never seen any of it. The toll notice, the penalty letter, the DMV warning, nothing. As far as I knew, my registration was clean. The officer was decent about it. Didn't tow the car on the spot, but told me I couldn't drive it until the suspension was cleared. The total was going to be somewhere around $800. The original toll, the late fees, the penalty, and a reinstatement fee. Basically, everything I had. He gave me a fix-it window and told me to handle it quick or the next stop wouldn't end with a warning. I called Nikolai from the shoulder of the road, and he came and picked me up. On the ride back, I started putting it together. The toll citation would have been mailed to my old address, my mom's address. When I got kicked out, updating my mailing address was the last thing on my mind. I changed it with my bank and my employer, but never filed with the post office. 2 days later, Nikolai drove me to my mom's place. She wasn't home. Na let us in. She looked happy to see me, which made my chest hurt, but I stayed focused. I went to the kitchen counter where my mom always stacked mail and found a neat little pile, held together with a rubber band tucked inside a drawer near the microwave. All my mail. Every single piece that had come after I moved out, the toll notice, the penalty letter, the DMV warning, a jury duty summons, a bank statement, a piece of mail from my health insurance. She'd kept all of it, organized. Some of the envelopes were already opened. She'd read them. That was the part that made my stomach drop. Throwing it away would have been careless. Keeping it meant she knew exactly what she was doing. Nikolai looked at the stack, then at me. Brother, she rubber-banded it. This woman is psychopath. Yeah, she rubber-banded it. I took photos of every piece of mail. Front, back, postmarks, the drawer, the rubber band, the stack. Nikolai stood behind me the whole time, making sure I didn't miss anything. Then I took the entire stack and we left. Over the next week, I went into full lockdown mode. Went to the post office and set up a P.O. box. Paid for 6 months up front because I wasn't going to risk a lapse. Everything got rerouted to that box. Bank, insurance, DMV, everything. Then I switched every account I had to paperless. Email notifications, digital statements, online portals. If it could be digital, it became digital. I wrote down every piece of withheld mail with dates, senders, contents, and what happened because of it. Started building a paper trail. Took the photos and the documentation and put them in a folder that I kept at Nikolai's place. A physical backup in a location she didn't know about. Nikolai's exact words when I handed him the folder were, "If she finds out about this, she's going to be very unhappy." He said it the same way you'd say, "The sun's going to come up tomorrow." I paid the registration fees. It wrecked my savings and set me back at least 2 months. But I got the car back on the road, handled the suspension, and cleared the toll situation. Every receipt went into the folder, building a paper trail, whether I ever needed to use it or not. My mom must have realized the mail was gone because a few days later, she sent me this impossibly sweet text. "Me amor this, and I miss you that," asking how I was doing, saying she hoped we could talk soon, saying my sister drew a picture for me. No mention of the mail. No acknowledgement. Just sweetness. The kind that would fool anyone who didn't know the woman behind it. That was her whole playbook in one move. Punch you in the dark, then greet you with a hug in the daylight. And if you ever brought it up, suddenly you were the ungrateful one, and she was just trying to be a good mom. I didn't respond. By the next spring, the mail situation was handled, and I was focused on rebuilding, working full-time, finally building something instead of just surviving. I picked up a second gig doing sound work for a local venue. That's where I met Dean. Dean was a touring musician passing through who needed a last-minute sound guy for a 3-night run. We clicked right away. He was older, mid-30s, had been on the road for years, and had this calm energy, like nothing surprised him anymore. After the run, he pulled me aside while the crew was loading out. "You got good ears, man. And you actually show up on time, which is rarer than you think." I laughed. "That's a low bar."
You'd be surprised.
"Listen, if you ever want road work, I can get you on with my crew. Think about it." That was the first time someone in a position to actually change my path told me I was good at something. Not good at being useful. Not good at doing what I was told. Good at a skill. I started picking up road gigs with Dean's crew whenever they came through. Better money than anything I'd seen before, and I was seeing parts of the country I never thought I'd see. For the first time, I was putting away real savings. I remember one night we were loading out of this venue in Philly and Dean handed me a check for the week, and I literally sat in the van and stared at it. I'd never held a check that size that had my name on it. I'd also started seeing someone new. She was good. Wasn't in the middle of any of the mess with my mom, and didn't treat my life like a problem to manage or a story to react to. She just showed up. Then tax season came, and she found me again. I filed my return in early February. Simple return, nothing complicated. W-2S, electronic filing, standard stuff. Expected my refund within a few weeks. 3 weeks later, I got a notification that my return had been rejected. The reason? Someone had already claimed me as a dependent for that tax year. Didn't even need to read the rest. My mom had claimed me on her taxes. I hadn't lived with her in months. She hadn't supported me financially. And she didn't even know my current address. But she had my social security number memorized. And apparently, That was enough to reach into my life without being anywhere near it and yank the rug out again. The timing couldn't have been worse. I was in the middle of applying for my own apartment. First real solo apartment, no roommates, no shared house. The leasing office needed proof of income and my most recent tax return. A rejected return was a red flag the size of a billboard. The leasing agent looked at me like I'd handed her a fake ID. "We can't process this with a rejected return. Do you have any other proof of income?" "Like what?" 3 months of pay stubs, bank statements showing deposits, maybe a letter from your employer. "And we'd need a larger security deposit." I walked out of that office and sat in my car for a good 10 minutes. Engine off, hands on the wheel, staring at nothing. I was furious in a way that was almost calm. Of course she did this. Of course it landed at the worst possible time. She didn't need to be in the room to ruin something. She just needed a 9-digit number and the willingness to use it. I didn't call her, didn't text her. Drama was what she fed on. Instead, I went into full lockdown mode again. Filed a paper return by mail with a written dispute. Lease, bank statements, employer letter. That process was going to take months. The IRS doesn't move fast, but at least the dispute was on record. Called the identity protection line and got an IPN so nobody could file using my social security number again. Then I froze my credit across all 3 bureaus. Changed every password, removed her as my emergency contact everywhere, and set up 2-factor authentication on everything. Changed my security questions too, because every one of them used answers she'd know. Nikolai helped me draft a timeline document. Every incident, every date, every piece of evidence. He said if I ever needed it for legal purposes, it'd be ready. For the apartment, I went back to the leasing office with a folder. 3 months of pay stubs, 6 months of bank statements, a signed employer letter, and an extra month as a security deposit. The agent flipped through everything and said she could work with it. Got approved 2 weeks later. The part that actually made me smile was what happened on her end. Because I disputed the dependent claim, the IRS flagged her return, too. Her refund got held while they reviewed both filings. From what I heard through my sister, the household was counting on that money. When the refund got frozen, things got tense fast. Then my aunt called me. The same aunt whose living room was used for the ambush.
Her tone was different this time, though.
She asked me what was really going on, and for the first time, she actually listened. I didn't tell her everything, but I told her enough that I hadn't lived with my mom in a long time, and she claimed me on her taxes anyway, that I'd had mail withheld from me. My aunt got quiet and said something I never expected to hear from that side of the family. "Your mother told us a very different story." "Yeah," I said. "She always does." My sister also let slip that my stepdad was pushing back. The frozen refund was supposed to cover his kids' expenses. He wanted answers. My mom tried her usual playbook: deflect, guilt, redirect. But he wasn't her child. He didn't have 20 years of conditioning. He just wanted his money. That apartment got real uncomfortable for her. For the first time, her system backfired into her own life. The IRS doesn't care about guilt trips. You can't cry your way out of a tax dispute. Dean called me around that time about a spot on a longer tour run. Multiple cities, solid pay. I need someone reliable for 3 months. You in or you out? I'm in. Good.
We leave in 2 weeks. Get your stuff sorted.
I took it without hesitation. 3 months later, I had enough saved and enough stability to make the move official. Found a place 800 miles from my mother's zip code, signed the lease over the phone, wired the deposit, and started packing. I loaded up my car on a Tuesday morning before the sun was all the way up. It was really cold. I remember that. Pulled out of that city and didn't look in the rearview once. By late 2024, I'd been living far away for over a year, and the strangest part wasn't the distance. It was the silence. For years, my nervous system had been wired for the next hit, the next phone call, the next demand, the next guilt trip. And then one day there was just nothing. I'd wake up, and the only sound was traffic outside and the coffee maker. Nobody going through my drawers, nobody asking where my paycheck went, nobody running my name through the family phone tree. I started settling into a routine. Dean had connected me with the booking network, and I was getting steady road gigs, running sound for acts passing through the region. Some weeks I was home. Some weeks I was in a van heading to a city I'd only seen on a map. The money was consistent. Not rich, but consistent, which honestly felt better than rich at that point. I was still with the same girl, and for the first time, it actually felt like a real partnership. She'd call me out when I was being avoidant, but never used my past as ammo. Her family treated me like their own son. Sunday dinners at her parents' place, her dad asking about work, her mom making sure I ate before I left. Normal felt like something I didn't even know I was missing until I had it. I kept minimal contact with my mom, not for her sake, but for my little sister. I'd call maybe once every couple weeks, always on my terms, always short. If she started slipping into the old patterns, guilt-tripping, bringing up money, I'd cut the call and not pick up for a while. Every time she pushed, the gap got longer. She learned I was serious. For a few months, it almost felt like we'd reached something livable. She stayed in her lane, I stayed in mine, and my sister got to hear my voice. I wasn't naive enough to think she'd changed, but I thought maybe the distance was enough of a firewall. Maybe 800 miles was finally the number she couldn't reach across. Then the text came. She dropped this bomb. It was long. She told me she'd given birth a few months back. I had no idea she'd even been pregnant. Mid-40s, with a newborn. She talked about how the baby was difficult, how she didn't have the energy she used to, health problems. My stepdad was working constantly and dealing with his own kids in the apartment. My sister was too young to help. I kept scrolling, waiting for the ask, because there's always an ask. Then she got to the point. She wanted me to move back home to help take care of the baby. Or, if that wasn't possible, she wanted me to take the baby and raise it at my place. I read that message 3 times. She wanted me to either uproot the life I'd built from nothing and become a freeloading nanny, or ship a newborn across the country to be raised by the son she kicked out, sabotaged, and tried to use for immigration fraud. The sheer nerve of this woman was impressive. It was all the same thing. She saw me as a tool she could pull out whenever she had a problem she didn't feel like solving herself. And no amount of distance was ever going to change that. I sat with that text for a full day. Not because I was considering it. I knew my answer the second I read it. I sat with it because I wanted the message I sent back to be the last one I'd ever need to send. And yeah, I know someone's going to ask why I didn't just file a restraining order. I thought about it, but here's the thing. Courts want proof of physical threats or stalking. What my mom did was messed up and some of it was straight up illegal. But a judge would hear. She held my mail and claimed me on her taxes and tell me that's a civil matter, not a protection case. Plus, filing a restraining order against your own mother in a Dominican family? That's not just burning a bridge, that's burning every bridge connected to it, including my sister. And I was still broke for most of this. Lawyers cost money I didn't have. Court dates meant missed shifts I couldn't afford to miss. Moving 800 miles away and blocking her on everything was my restraining order, the broke version. But it worked. The next morning, I typed out my response. Short. Told her I'd been naive, thinking distance would change anything. I wasn't uprooting my life to take care of her child. I was going no contact. I wished everyone a good life and told her not to contact me again. Then I blocked her number. Blocked her on every platform, every app, email, everything. Deleted the thread so I wouldn't be tempted to reread it, looking for something human in her words. There was nothing there to find. I set my phone down on the kitchen counter and just stood there for a minute. My girlfriend walked in and saw my face. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "I think I actually am." She didn't push it, just poured 2 cups of coffee and sat down next to me. My shoulders dropped and I could actually breathe. I found out later, through a cousin, I still talked to that things at my mom's place were rough. Apartment overcrowded with my stepdad's kids and a newborn. Finances tight because the tax refund situation had cascaded into real budget problems. People stopped picking up when she called. People were doing the math and realizing that maybe the kid she kept calling ungrateful was just the one who got out. I don't take joy in that, But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't some peace in knowing that the whole setup she had going was falling apart without me there to hold it together. These days, I wake up, make coffee, go to work, come home to someone who actually wants me there. I'm thinking about proposing. I'm thinking about what kind of life I want to build, not what kind of life I need to escape. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. And honestly, blocking her felt like locking a door I should have locked years ago. I still haven't figured out what to do about my sister, though. That part keeps me up sometimes. So, I've told you my story. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to draw a line like this with family, or deal with someone who just wouldn't stop? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know.